Islam entered the region only in 700 AD, coming from Saudi Arabia. So if we have to compare which is the more aboriginal or more indigenous people, then I think it's very clear here. But that's not denying the fact that the Palestinian residents of the area have since then gained rights that we can't deny and that we have to recognize and deal with. But when it comes to who is the aboriginal people, who is the indigenous people, according to the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, then there's no doubt about it that the indigenous status of the Jews is very, very clear. Now, the international community has chosen, for whatever reason, to ignore the rights of Israel and the Jewish people in the territory and to deny the rights of Jews to live there. According to UN resolutions, EU declarations by the Anglican Church, there should be absolutely no Jewish presence in the area. It should be Judenrein. Can you name any other area of the world that the international community considers has to be Judenrein? Now, the settlement of Israelis in Judea and Samaria is basically on land that is not privately owned, and this is what international law requires. In other words, Israel took upon itself to act in accordance with the humanitarian norms existent in international law, because we're controlling territory in which there is a local population, which, according to these international norms, deserve their rights to be honoured. And there's criticism whether we do this well or not, but nevertheless, private land has to be honoured. And if they have private land, then, as exists in all the world, in all legal systems, these private rights have to be honoured. But by the same norms, public land that's not private, a country administering the territory has the right to enjoy the fruits. In Article 55 of the Hague Regulations, it's called usufructus. We have the right to enjoy the fruits of the land as long as we're there. And this is translated in modern day terms, whether it's to enjoy the oil under the ground, or apples growing on the trees, or to use the land for purposes of settlement, as long as we don't harm the land itself, such that in the event that when we come to an agreement, we have to leave the area, so we're not leaving a damaged area. And this is the basic principle in international law that enables us to settle and to live in these areas as long as they're not privately owned. And the whole issue of the Levy report and following on from what Talia Sasson wrote in her report was whether we're doing this in a legal manner or not. And this I'll come to in a minute. But let me just devote 2 minutes to the issue of the Geneva Convention and the provision of Article 49 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which is thrown at us every day by every international organization and by every country in the world, including the United States. The prohibition of mass forced transfer of population of the occupier into the occupied territory is prohibited. Okay? Now, anybody who bothers to read the travaux préparatoires, the documentation that was prepared during the course of the drafting of the Fourth Geneva Convention between 1947 and 1949, and anybody who bothers to read the formal official commentary of the Fourth Geneva Convention published by the International Committee of the Red Cross, then you'd understand that this whole provision was intended to prevent what happened during the Second World War, when the Nazis forcibly moved huge masses of populations into Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and other countries. And anybody who reads these commentaries and various other commentators, international experts on the Geneva Convention, will see that this wasn't intended to refer to or apply to the type of settlement activity that Israel carries out, especially in light of the fact that every Israeli resident of the territories signs a contract with the Israel Land Administration that in the event that at some particular stage we have to move out, then the territory goes back to its original state, and hence all those who live in the territories basically are living not on the basis of ownership, unless they own the territory beforehand, the land beforehand, but on the basis of 45-year or 49-year leases.